Through the years, numerous Chinese leaders have worked toward turning China into a more powerful military force. However, no leader has been as ambitious in this endeavor as Xi Jinping, the current president of the People's Republic of China. Shortly after taking office, Xi started promoting the so-called Chinese Dream, which he labeled as the Great Rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. This rejuvenation is to take place by 2049, the country's centenary, and seeks to turn China into a modern and capable world-class military powerhouse. But how is this plan unfolding some 25 years before its scheduled completion? In other words, how does China's military rank among the top global powers in 2024? If you're looking for a short answer, it ranks high. In fact, the U.S. Department of Defense sees the People's Republic of China as the only competitor to the United States on the global stage. That's why the department prepares an annual report titled Military and Security Developments Involving the People's Republic of China. This report provides in-depth insights into China's military advancements and their implications for global security. The latest of these reports makes one thing clear: China has all the intent and increasingly the capacity to reshape the international order. In this video, we'll focus on the capacity in question, breaking down China's military capabilities in 2024. Of course, this breakdown will primarily be based on the report curated by the U.S. Department of Defense. However, it'll also consult the 2024 Global Firepower Report, which ranks China third out of 145 examined countries in terms of military power. This report takes a unique, by-the-numbers approach to assessing military strength, considering factors such as manpower, financial resources, and logistical capabilities. But whichever report you consult, you'll come to the same conclusion: China is a formidable military power that is just getting started. Of course, to make these ambitious military dreams a reality, the country needs one thing the most: money. So let's start with China's military budget. At the moment, China is the second biggest spender on defense globally, trailing only behind the US. However, even the word trailing might be an understatement, given the discrepancy in the defense budgets of the two countries. As the #1 military spender in the world, the US plans to allocate a mind-boggling $886 billion to national defense in 2024. For China, on the other hand, this figure is closer to $236 billion. But there's more to this discrepancy than meets the eye. Sure, China might have a significantly lower military budget in 2024 compared to the US, but not compared to China in 2023. You see, China's 2024 military budget marks a hefty 7.2% rise in military spending in a single year, building on over 20 years of defense upgrades. In contrast, the US military's budget is capped at a 1% increase, all thanks to a 2023 budget deal. Since no similar cap exists in China, and the country seems to be drastically increasing its military budget every single year, it's easy to see why the US deems it the biggest and most worrying competitor in terms of military strength. Of course, the fact that China has a substantially larger military in terms of manpower certainly does not help. But in this regard, China doesn't just trump the US, it trumps every other country in the world. That's right, China has the largest standing army in the world, with over 3 million personnel committed to various degrees and across different branches of service. However, to be fair, this is probably expected from one of the most populous countries in the world. As of 2024, China has 1.42 billion people, making up 17.72% of the total world population. It's closely edged out in battle for the coveted title of the most populous country by India, which only has some 3 million people more. These staggering figures also give China and India the biggest pool of potential military recruits, providing them with a significant advantage in terms of military power from the get-go. So theoretically, China can commit as many as 763 million people to its war efforts, a figure that dwarfs the entire population of many countries, the US included. Of course, not all of these available individuals could be mobilized for military purposes, as many factors including health and social needs come into play. But even if we only consider the total population fit for military service, China still reigns supreme. According to estimations, the country could mobilize as many as 626 million of its inhabitants, about 82% of all available individuals. To understand just how massive this figure is, all you need to know is that the US could do the same with nearly 124 million people. Talk about a numerical advantage. If you believe this gap will close anytime soon, we've got bad news. China ranks second among global countries in terms of the total available population reaching military age annually. At this point of time, China is expected to gain some 20 million new potential recruits every year. The US, in contrast, can expect roughly 4 times less. The same goes for every other country in the world, except the first-ranked India, as no one's able to surpass the 5 million threshold of new recruits. But enough with the future. Let's see how China currently stands in terms of military manpower. To do so, we'll look into 3 key aspects: active military personnel, reserve personnel, and paramilitary forces. Active duty personnel are arguably the most critical components, as these individuals are the ones immediately available for deployment in case of conflicts or emergencies anywhere in the world. China has over 2 million of these personnel, making it the largest active duty military force by a margin. The second and third-ranked countries, India and the US, have 1.45 and 1.32 million respectively. China's active duty personnel also make up roughly 60% of all available manpower in the country. This means that in the event of a war, the country would have a substantial force ready for immediate action, allowing for victory through sheer strength of numbers. With such a huge number of active military personnel, who needs a large reserve? Not China, that's for sure. That's why the country only has about 500,000 reservists at its disposal. Of course, we use the word "only" quite loosely here. After all, this figure still puts China in the top 15 countries in the world. The only reason this number might seem small is because the first-ranked country, Vietnam, boasts a staggering 5 million reservists. But let's not forget, Vietnam has a long history of conflict that has shaped the country's approach to national defense. In other words, Vietnam has no global ambitions similar to those of China. It just wants to ensure its security and defend its sovereignty. China, on the other hand, is a much larger and developed country with an entirely different approach to military size and strategy. The country sees reserve duty officers and soldiers as more of a support system for active duty personnel. As for their secondary mission, reservists are there to help maintain social order and provide aid during national disasters. Interestingly, these are also some of China's paramilitary forces roles. As of 2024, China officially has about 625,000 paramilitary personnel. However, it's important to note that the People's Liberation Army, or PLA, reserves are often considered a paramilitary unit, which would significantly boost this number. That's not to mention all male citizens are required to enroll in the militia as soon as they turn 18, as per China's military service law. But what exactly do these paramilitary forces do? The militia can be mobilized for various peacetime and wartime missions. During peacetime, militia units will provide humanitarian aid and disaster relief, support military training, and help maintain internal security. It's all about what these units can do for the active duty PLA personnel in wartime. The militia soldiers will assist these personnel and even replace them if necessary. However, depending on the circumstances, the militia can also be deployed on independent security operations. This just leaves us with one more crucial paramilitary component: the People's Armed Police, or PAP. During peacetime, the PAP's primary mission is to take care of internal and maritime security, riot control, and counter-terrorism operations. In times of war, as you can probably guess, the PAP is there to support the PLA. All in all, the total number of China's military and paramilitary personnel is nothing short of impressive. These astounding figures also correspond to one of the tenets of active defense, the military strategy China uses to safeguard its sovereignty, security, and development interests. This tenet states, "Soldiers and the people are the source of victory." Now, no one can deny that there is strength in numbers, but let's be honest, numbers would hardly matter if it weren't for military equipment, weaponry, and technology. So let's see how China ranks in these regards. Here we have 4 areas of interest: China's land power, air power, naval force, and nuclear capabilities. But before diving into each one of these categories, you should first get to know the forces using them. In other words, it's time to look into the major service branches under the People's Liberation Army banner. In total, there are 5 of these branches: the People's Liberation Army Ground Force, or PLA-GF, the People's Liberation Army Air Force, or PLA-AF, the People's Liberation Army Navy, or PLAN, the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force, or PLARF, and the People's Liberation Army Strategic Support Force, or PLASSF. Let's start on the ground. Sure, the PLA-GF has steadily reduced active-duty personnel in the last 3 decades. However, this branch still outnumbers other military branches by a margin. It accounts for roughly 1 million of China's total active military personnel. As for the People's Liberation Army Air Force, this branch has grown steadily since 2015, indicating its increasing importance. In 2024, the PLA-AF has approximately 400,000 personnel. Add the PLA's Naval Air Force into the mix, and you have the largest aviation force in the Indo-Pacific region. But of course, China's ambitions span well beyond this region. And that's why it shouldn't be surprising that the PLAAF continues to rapidly catch up to the Western Air Forces. This branch has also shifted focus from territorial air defense to building a force capable of projecting air power at long range, another testament to the country's global ambitions. These ambitions can also explain why China has one of the largest military fleets in the world, both in terms of active-duty personnel and vessels. As you'll soon see, the People's Liberation Army Navy is about 300,000 strong. This just leaves us with 2 more branches, both somewhat unique in their nature and foreign to the Western military's planners. The first is the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force, which manages the country's land-based missile units, both nuclear and conventional. This branch has about 120,000 personnel. As for the last, the smallest, and the newest branch of the People's Liberation Army, Strategic Support Force, it centralizes China's cyber, electronic, and space warfare capabilities. In other words, this is the force behind China's infamous information warfare, a beloved weapon in the country's gray zone warfare arsenal. And that's it. The 5 branches of the People's Liberation Army and their sizes and roles. Now let's see what kind of technology they have at their disposal. Though we'll look into forces separately and individually, it's important to remember that China's goal is to conduct the full range of operations all at once. However, our goal is much simpler, helping you to understand how strong China is across various warfare domains. So let's take it step by step. As always, we'll start at the ground level and work our way up and around. When it comes to land power, China has historically relied on the Soviet Union and later Russia as its primary material supplier. However, the country has been slowly turning away from Russia, opting to work with other European countries like France or rely on local solutions when building new equipment. As of 2024, China boasts a sizable land force consisting of roughly 200,000 armored and unarmored vehicles. This impressive figure places China among the top 4 land forces in the world. But let's take a closer look at the composition of the force. First up, the strongest fleet in terms of numbers is the Armored Fighting Vehicles fleet. In this department, China ranks at number 2, with about 174,300 of these vehicles. The only country that has more fighting vehicles than China is the US, which has more than double the number of these vehicles. The most represented among these vehicles are the following models. Number 1, the ZBL-08, with over 2,000 units. Though the PLA-GF primarily operates this 8-wheel vehicle as an armored personnel carrier or APC or an infantry fighting vehicle IFV, the ZBL-08 is increasingly used in reconnaissance and anti-aircraft operations. Number 2, the ZBD-04A with 1,925 units. This medium-armored tracked IFV seats 7 combat-ready troops and is widely used by the PLA-GF. Number 3, the WZ-501, also known as the Type 86A, is available in 1,250 units to the PLA-GF. This vehicle is nothing more than a copy of a Soviet-era BMP-1 IFV, which is no longer in production. The next notable land fleet is China's Tank Brigade. China has roughly 5,000 tanks, which ranks it above the US, and it operates about 4,600 of these vehicles. Of course, neither China nor the US can compete with Russia in this regard, as the country owns a massive fleet of almost 15,000 tanks. Among China's tank fleet, some vehicles are considered the primary main battle tanks, or MBTs, of the country's land forces. The most represented among them are the 2,500 units of the ZTZ-96 Soviet-inspired tanks that are armed with 125mm smoothbore guns, the 635 units of the ZTZ-99 ultra-modern tanks that are armed with 125mm smoothbore guns, the 625 units of the ZTZ-99A tanks that had a more powerful engine and a better main gun armament. Next, in China's land force fleet, self-propelled and towed artillery systems. These vehicles primarily serve to provide fire support to ground troops, engage enemy positions, and destroy enemy fortifications and vehicles. The only difference between the two systems is pretty obvious from their names alone. The former vehicles can move independently on the battlefield, while the latter must be towed behind other vehicles. Judging by the numbers, China relies significantly more on the former type. China's land force fleet has approximately 3,850 self-propelled gun vehicles, or SPGs. This figure places it third place globally behind Russia and North Korea, but ahead of the US, which has about 1,500 of these systems. As for their towed counterparts, China still ranks ahead of the US with 1,434 units, but this number places it at the number 13 spot globally. Unsurprisingly, the number 1 spot is reserved for Russia, which boasts over 8,000 towed artillery pieces. The last fleet worth looking into, especially considering China's military branches, is the Multiple Launch Rocket System, or MLRS fleet. Given that the country has a separate branch dedicated to rocket forces, it should not be surprising that China places at the top of this category. All in all, it has about 3,180 of these so-called rocket projectors, leaving the US with not even 700 in the dust. However, this scenario isn't likely to repeat in any of the categories of the next force we're inspecting, China's air power. Why? Because the US maintains the strongest air force in the world by an impressive margin. To understand just how impressive we're talking, all you need to know is that China and Russia's aerial fleets together can't come close to the US's magnificent 13,000 aircraft strong fleet. Russia has a little over 4,000 aircraft, while China comes in third with about 3,300. Most of China's initial aircraft were modeled after Soviet units or even built under license with specific Soviet models and then renamed. However, over the years, China started replacing these aging aircraft with better and more capable types. So today, 3 aircraft are increasingly at the core of Chinese air power. Number 1. The Chengdu J-10 Vigorous Dragon, also known as the Firebird. This locally developed multi-role aircraft currently serves as the backbone of China's air operations, accounting for almost 600 units. Number 2. The Shenyang J-11, the Soviet-inspired twin-engine jet fighter. Currently, the PLAAF owns over 200 of these aircraft types. Number 3. The Chengdu J-20, which is reportedly China's answer to the American F-22 Raptor. This 5th-generation fighter is incredibly stealthy, though not yet proven in active war zones. The PLAAF plans to produce over 200 units while owning about 115. These fighter aircraft are excellent indicators of China's aerial ambitions. Though it started with an outdated copy-and-paste fleet, China has made significant strides in developing its own indigenous fighter aircraft. And if we go by the numbers, this is the primary project of the PLAAF, as fighter jets make up as much as 36% of all of China's military aircraft. Here's a stat to put this figure into perspective. Only 14% of the US Air Force's aircraft are fighter aircraft. But this time, China's strength isn't only in the numbers. The country is also working on upgrading its existing fleet to meet the goal of a world-class military powerhouse through air superiority. Here are just some of the more recent upgrades. The Chengdu J-20 fighter received a new 2-seat variant in 2021. This model will also receive further upgrades, including more air-to-air missiles and supercruise capability. The latter is thanks to China's new and powerful engine, the WS-15s. Also, the Chengdu J-10C is likely to become a stealth fighter, as China is developing tech to make it undetectable in the skies. While we're on the topic of fighter aircraft, we must also mention China's attack aircraft fleet. This fleet is made up of some 370 aircraft, putting China in third place behind the US and Russia. The bulk of China's bomber fleet comprises H-6 Badger variants, which are just domestically produced Soviet Tupolev Tu-16 or Badger bombers. Other notable aircraft in China's aerial fleet include roughly 400 training aircraft to cover airmen's basic and advanced fighters, attack fighters, helicopters, and general flight training. Almost 300 transport aircraft transporting troops, equipment, and supplies. A little over 100 special mission aircraft designed to perform specialized tasks such as reconnaissance, surveillance, and electronic warfare. 10 tanker aircraft for aerial refueling operations. These aircraft are exceptionally expensive to make and challenging to use. This is why only the US boasts a significant fleet of them, with over 600. We must also mention China's helicopter fleet, which has recently seen an upgrade in the form of a new engine. China showcased this powerful 1,100 kilowatt turboshaft helicopter engine in 2023. In the future, the country plans to use this engine to revolutionize the development of medium and heavyweight helicopters. But for now, China operates a little over 900 helicopters, roughly 280 of which are dedicated attack helicopters. With this, we complete the overview of China's traditional aerial military equipment. But there is one more aspect worth mentioning: China's advancements in drone technology. Sure, these unmanned aerial systems, or UASs, are often not included in the total number of aerial equipment a country possesses. However, their importance in the modern age can't be understated. It seems that China is well aware of this importance as it keeps expanding the applications of UASs. Recently, the country has demonstrated its effectiveness in roles like disaster communications, firefighting, and weather modification. However, China is also increasingly focusing on the military capabilities of these drones, seeking to develop units that can engage in air-to-air and air-to-ground combat. But until these units join China's military equipment list, let's focus on what's currently there, this time in the naval power department. As mentioned, China is a formidable naval force, no matter which point of view you adopt, the number of mariners or the number of hulls. Since we've already tackled naval manpower, let's dive into China's naval fleet. It's no secret China has long worked to modernize its military equipment, and the country's warships are very much a part of those efforts. However, these warships might be the area of the country's heaviest investments. Why? The answer is simple: China doesn't really have the friendliest maritime neighbors. Though, to be fair, this is mostly China's own doing, as the nation has been asserting territorial claims left and right. Naturally, this has led to tensions with surrounding countries like Japan, Vietnam, and the Philippines. The tensions in the Indo-Pacific, especially in the Taiwan Strait, mostly explain China's impressive warship fleet, which consists of 730 vessels. Only Russia has more, about 780. The core strength of China's naval power currently comes from its submarine and destroyer force, backed by numerous frigates and corvettes. So, let's round up these vessels first. As of 2024, the PLAN operates 60 submarines, which places them in proximity of the top two nations, 64 by the US and 65 by Russia. However, China has seemingly decided to focus on modernizing its existing submarine force rather than expanding its numbers significantly. That is, at least for now. By 2035, the PLAN plans to grow its submarine force to 80 units, which will be made possible by an expansion of the country's construction capacity. The current submarine fleet consists of the following vessel types: 6 nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines (SSBN), 6 nuclear-powered attack submarines (SSN), 48 diesel-powered and air-independent powered attack submarines (SS). Next up, China's destroyer force. This force is almost 50 ships strong, ranking China second globally. Here's a quick breakdown of the vessels in this fleet. 29 Luoyang 3 class warships commissioned since 2014. 8 Renhai class hulls, a new warship class that began commissioned service in 2020. 6 Luoyang 2 class destroyers commissioned in 2004. When it comes to frigates and corvettes, China is an undisputed leader in the world. But there is a reason for this. You see, China has a quite long coastline that has historically required a larger number of warships to patrol and secure. Since frigates and corvettes are smaller and generally less expensive than destroyers and submarines, these vessels were entrusted with this crucial task. So now China has 42 frigates and 72 corvettes. But it isn't stopping there. Instead, it's building bigger and more advanced vessels. The country's next-generation frigate, the Type 54B, was launched toward the end of 2023. This vessel boasts a more advanced radar with better detection capability, an integrated electronic propulsion system, or IEP, and a combined diesel and gas-powered system that makes it more challenging to detect. With this in mind, it shouldn't be surprising that this frigate type has been labeled as a mini-destroyer by Chinese military experts. In the corvette department, things are seemingly even more exciting for China. An intriguing futuristic stealth corvette was spotted at Liaonan Shipyard in 2023, prompting numerous questions about the future of the PLAN's naval designs. The only area China is currently severely lacking is aircraft carriers. Though these carriers are undoubtedly the flagship of a powerful navy, China has only 2 operational ones. Though to be fair, the US is the only country with a double-digit number of carriers, with 11. But again, China isn't just sitting idly by. Instead, it has recently launched a 3rd aircraft carrier and announced the construction of the 4th. China's 3rd aircraft carrier is also the country's first Type 3 class vessel. This carrier can displace upwards of 80,000 tons, making it the prized possession of the PLAN. Both of the previous aircraft carriers are Kuznetsov-class vessels, which are older and have faced various operational issues. With land, aerial, and naval power out of the way, we only have one more area of China's military force to cover: its nuclear capabilities. If there was a single word to describe China's nuclear arsenal, it would be burgeoning. China persists in rapidly modernizing, diversifying, and expanding its nuclear forces. A mere decade ago, these efforts were almost nowhere to be found, once again confirming how serious the country is about strengthening its overall military capabilities. As of 2024, China possesses over 500 operational nuclear warheads. By 2030, this number will likely double, as predicted by the U.S. Department of Defense experts. By these numbers alone, and the nature of these weapons, it's clear that China is hell-bent on playing a crucial role in global affairs. If China's current military operations are an indicator of its future intentions, this might not be such good news for the rest of the world. Namely, China is increasingly conducting complex operations beyond the country's continental borders. Within Asia, China regularly ventures into the far reaches of the South China Sea, enforcing its territorial claims. But even beyond Asia, many foreign militaries now have to regularly encounter the PLA on the ground and at sea. Sometimes these encounters are military exercises and friendly contacts, but other times they are quite tense conflicts. Many of these conflicts are caused by China's persistent desire to overturn the international rules-based order. Of course, this is mostly done covertly and through gray zone tactics. On the surface, China tries to project an image of a responsible global player, constantly attempting to improve the global perceptions of its actions. For instance, Beijing has publicly denied providing lethal assistance to Russia during the Russo-Ukrainian War, despite there being evidence suggesting otherwise. Of course, more people are concerned with what China does than what it says it does. And what China has done is build a military that's more powerful and capable than ever, and seemingly on the rise. However, China's armed forces are yet to be tested in a major military conflict. And if Russia's disastrous invasion of Ukraine is any indicator, military hardware and manpower doesn't necessarily translate to victory in the conflict. So, what do you think? Does China really have what it takes to become the world-class military power it strives to be? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Then check out why China will never be a global superpower, or watch this video instead.